NPL, day 1, breakdown. Game 1, right here, right now. Plans in the sky, rather straightforward. Everyone can go, well, pretty much wherever they want. The circle goes north. For teams like Noble and Military, of course, that's a bit of a but that's kind of the risk you take when you go military, obviously. Then you had McCoy knocking himself in Milta. Of course, it doesn't really hurt that much, but it's not what you want to happen. Maybe that's some early on jitters. Hey, Cillian, some early jitters that actually, you know what? I'm just gonna remove the chat real quick from the screen because there you go. So you guys can see what's happening. Of course, a rough start to the tournament, but doesn't really matter. He got rest. Everything's good. Everyone goes about their loot spawns. Not a whole lot really to it here. You see Wildcard, they'll split 2-2. We know Wildcard like to loot Prim. But with the plane, them having to find vehicles and stuff, saying, you know what, we don't really need to go that far. And now that they're playing under different circle settings, there's not really a need for them to go all the way down to Prim. They would get at least somewhat looted off of what they have here, and with a good entry point to the circle anyway. So looking at where people are, we have a farm split, we have a west or south of Pachinki split, of course Cloud9 in Pachinki, splitting here a team in Razak. I like the split that shoot to kill actually have here. Pretty interesting as well, looting the north side compound buildings. Pretty simple. So not really any forced confrontations later on. Could be that if you don't have the amount of vehicles you really want. Of course, there's a designated vehicle both in Milta, in farm, and over here ish. There's a like a esport hard spawn in all three, so they would have at least one guaranteed vehicle, and with the amount of vehicle spawns in the southern side anyway, down and around here should be, I mean, plenty of vehicles. So could be some rotation confrontations for them to go up depending on how they decide to go up to the circle, but in most scenarios you won't really see any kills or anything done there. Teams rotating on in Cloud9, they'll go up early, cut across as well. They actually got into a bit of a fight up here. Got into a bit of a fight with White Fate. Not sure exactly why Cloud9 would stop. I mean, they obviously, White Fate shoots at them as they cross over the bridge, and then you have the ridge line here going up, and they stop here, starting shooting down. Oxy, hearing this, they want to go down and get a third party. You see them shooting, and then immediately Cloud9 moves out. So not sure if their trick was to see, wait, is there only one guy there? Should we confront him or not? And I think this guy, I'm just going to hide the kill people real quick. I think this could add to the fact that the point system has been changed as well. So way more kill. It's not kill. It kind of is kill heavy. It rewards you having kills, that's for sure. But of course, we all know at any point in the game, do you want to take the risk of dying, trying to go for kills or not? Is it worth it? Is it not worth it? Well, I mean, for the most part, it will be worth it, of course, if you can stay alive. But Cloud9 realized they don't want to take the fight, go back out. Nobody else really rotating on in yet, and they're up here. They did get their move on early on. Now VG, they're gonna make their way on up. Ghost has made their rotations on in as well. And as you can see, majority of teams opting to go on the north side of the river. Have the river going through here, and we always talk about this, but it's, I mean, we talk about it because it's worth mentioning, right? The fact that this river is a pain in the butt to have to cross late game. I mean, anywhere past circle 3, really, it's going to be really annoying to have to cross, because you know there's going to be people around the water, there's going to be people around all the areas of the bridges. Outside, you don't have your vehicles at that point, and if you do you want to drive across? That's risky. Do you want to swim across? That's even riskier. So surprising actually to me that so many teams opt to go up on the northern side, not knowing whether it's going to go north or south. Sometimes when you see teams coming in from the south, they'll just stay on the south side around like close to the bridge areas, and then they'll cross over later. But here a lot of the teams opt to go for the compounds further up. You see SA all the way up here actually taking shooting range area. I mean, they were up here already, but in this area, but they decided to stay rather than push further south. But also, I mean, three teams going over on the northern side here. Circle now, pups. Pretty much 50-50 split. You got kind of a yin-yang split here in the water. So again, not at all guaranteed where we're going. But as you can see, we have what, 1, 2, 3, 4.5, 5 teams on the southern side of the water. All the rest, I mean, the remaining 11 teams that is, they're all up on the north side. So that forces End. I mean, End, they're doing the smart thing. They're staying close to the bridge here. Ravav, thanks so much for the follow. End, they're staying close to the wall. Like, they just keep control of the bridge. We can go over, we can go below, we can go anywhere we want, according to what we need to do. Smart position for them to be in. They have full control of what they're doing. Now they are going a bit far down, so teams can swoop around them, and they've also lost control up here. But as you can see with their position right now, they're saying, you know what? This circle is going to go south. We're going to stay here. They have given up all bridge control, and they're saying, we are going to take a compound in the south side. We have the houses down here, and they're going to go into, I believe, yep, into warehouses as well. We'll do a 2-2 split down here. Then we can still go over if we need to, but we don't know anymore if there's a team up in North George, if there are teams behind us in South George. We don't expect there to be, but there could be. As you see, most teams up to go for the, well, around the water areas as well. Again, if you're forced to cross, do it early, get over there, get it over with. Once you do know for sure which side of the river it's going to pin to. But a lot of teams on the northern sides in the compounds up there, and a couple of teams in the south down here as well. Now the new circle pops. Where are we going? Boom. Still not guaranteed north, but, well, I mean, the odds are pretty much in their favor. So Ghost, they're sitting on the southern side. Lazar is there down here. VG, Noble, and Tempo Storm. All these guys on the south side. Some of these teams, they made their way around. Some of them were already down here. Now they have to figure, do we want to go out in the blue and cross over again? Do we want to cross inside the blue over to, I like to call this Bermuda? Or do we want to just try and push up from below and make our way in? I mean, there's only room for so many teams. I mean, this is circle 3 coming into... Is it 2 coming into 3? 1, 2, 3. Yeah, you're right. It's guaranteed north, actually. It cannot go south. Exclude water. La-di-di-la-di-da. Wait, is it? 1, 2, 3. It is. It is. It is. It's going north. Thank you. Thank you, Garrett. I was losing track of the circles there for a second. It's new circle settings, man. It's so confusing. No, it is going north, of course. For those of you guys, I mean, I'm not even... I can't be bothered to say it. But circle 4, away from water. That's it. There's not room for a circle down here that does not include some of the water. So if there's a room for a circle up here that doesn't have water, it's gonna go there. And of course, all these teams know this by now. That's why you see majority of them being in vehicles already. So what we see here, we can pan it as much as we want. Nobody is gonna want to cross this bridge. Nobody's gonna want to cross this bridge. Teams might be forced to, but at this point, I don't think anybody really wants. So as we drew up before, over the Rossock and the East Side Bridge, back over the George Bridge. Let's see what happens. We'll just play it, then we'll go back and look at it again. They go back over this bridge with TSM with Tempo Storm to follow. Noble go up here. They want to cross over. Lazarus to take this bridge, and now all we have left is VG and Ghost on the southern side. So not a big surprise there. And they came up over, or Endemic, or is it Endemic their name is? I think it is. Came up over. Tempo Storm followed them along. They, I believe Sharky might have seen one of their vehicles cross up, and then they decided to, well, drive behind them. And fortunately for them, they did never stop to shoot because the circle was closing in, so it would be dumb to take a fight out here in the blue. You could get a kill or two for it, but would the casualties on your regard be big enough for it not to be worth it? Most likely. And now with teams having, because you cannot just cross straight into the circle, that's the issue, right? Which means that this entire area, of course, it's open, that's one part, and the area down here is open as well, forces teams to go further out on the edges. Meaning you have a big concentration of players up here on the northern side, well, pretty much all around the northern side. You got over half the server sitting up here. And then you have the south side for the teams that didn't manage to make it across yet, kind of waiting for that next shift to happen. You got Ghost down here. They would be in for a rough one in just a moment. VG sitting down here as well, and they're kind of just tripping over each other. They both know they have to make it over the water, but at the same time, none of them want to be the first mover because, well, you know, if you go in the water, you're dead mate, right? Once you start swimming and there's a team holding you, it's just not going to happen. They probably heard the Sarius come over with their vehicles as well, so they know there's a team on the island. It's just, we do not want to go. We know we have to go, but let's wait for as long as we can. Like, let's try and wait out the other guys that want to move so we can at least kill them. So they're kind of just sitting down here and taking off each other. WGF sitting very well in it in the center. New circle pops. Boom. As we said, has to go north, or as Garrett corrected me, I guess you can say. Has to go north, not a whole lot more to it than that. And up north it goes. Pretty much the only place you could go. All these people know this. That's why they are where they are. And now, of course, for the VG and the Ghost guys, lots of areas to a certain extent as well. They can push up on this side here. I mean, they're sitting here. They can scout all this and see that it's completely open. But for them, they will have a bit of an easier move. But for Ghost and VG, good luck, boys. You're gonna need it. You can see they're already fighting down here. And they're making their way in. SSG, they've made their way in as well. And this is where it becomes interesting. WTF, they know their team's on the southern side. They're doing everything they can to hold them off. VG, they try to swim across. They were shot at by both Ghost and WTF. They start taking a lot of casualties. On the north side, teams start fighting as well. Because, I mean, there's only so much room. We could kind of try and draw it up. This is a huge open plateau. Well, I guess it goes from here, kind of here. That's a huge open plateau. So there are these areas. This is a huge open field as well. There are these areas of the map that you really cannot be in. And vehicles have been left, well, honestly, quite a while ago. Meaning that you don't have that, oh, if it's in the open, we can just make a car fort or something like that. You don't really have that opportunity anymore because you're running around in the hills. There are trees everywhere. If you start driving now, first of all, your vehicle will be hurt by, well, all of the remaining teams in the server. Secondly, since you're probably starting on an incline, you're most likely not going to get the speed you need to, well, be able to drive through anything. And if you're trying to drive anywhere that's not close by, odds are that 3 or 4 teams will shoot at you, and by that time, well, your vehicle will be blown up. So you cannot use those vehicles for the open areas, and at the same time, you cannot just run through them either. So these are areas of the map that pretty much become dead man's lands. Like, you do not want to enter any of these, and it makes it so hard for you to maneuver and rotate around. And all these teams, of course, they know this. They know this is the area where there's a lot of trees. Over here, you have the ridge line. There are some trees up here. You have trees up on the northern side and some dips you can play around with the plain grass area. So all the teams are forced to maneuver in those same few areas, causing a lot of fights. Technically, there's a lot of room between the teams, but they're forced to take these fights because there are only so many places they can go. Causing a lot of, I mean, even though it's probably 1 or 2 circles before we would have that chaos circle moment, these fights happen earlier because, well, it's so much more open. Ghost try to cross over, not gonna work for them. Balak, Frolicker still alive on the south side. I think they would end up dying to the circle, actually. White Team Fate, they will move up from the bottom, and you can see, again, look at the edge here. There's so many teams sitting out on the edge. We talked about it. It's open in the middle. You do not want to be here. You simply cannot play it. So, Clamp, chilling by himself, has his teammates and Oxy around, trying to hold off the southern side. Cloud9 and SSG, they end up fighting on the west side. Cloud9 would win that, and White Team Fate, they played it extremely safe. They don't force themselves into any fights. You can see how slowly they push up. They hear all these fights happening, but they never really engage in any of it. They just keep track of the kill feed, know how many people have gone down from either team, and if anyone tries to swoop underneath on their side, this way, if anyone tries to come underneath this way, they're kind of holding off each side, making some room for themselves. You want to wait for the next circle. You know this terrain. You don't need your vehicles anymore. Take it one step at a time. Make your way forward. Kind of the same thing that's happening on the top side of things with Tempo Storm. Keep this in mind. For those of you guys who didn't watch these games yesterday, Tempo Storm sitting up here with White Team Fate on the bottom side. They're kind of sort of doing the same thing right now. Just keep that in mind. Not pursuing the fights. Just letting people come to them. Constantly spreading out, making some room. Now you see White Team Fate. They wait for it. They get the third-party engagement they want to. 2 teams get eliminated here. And Oxy starts taking a lot of casualties as well. New circle pops somewhat center. And with the amount of room they've just made on the southern side, that bottleneck that you sometimes tend to get into, because had there been more teams down here, like had all these teams still been alive down here, would have been completely random who managed to get in. White Team Fate, they managed to get the room. They make their way in now. They got, I believe, Jason narrowed down behind a tree. Clam is outside of the shack. He's going to go down in a second's time as well. And then you have Tempo Storm. After they took out, I believe, E United on the top side. Up here, they got themselves a ton of room to work with as well. I think Taylor was the last person to go down from their team. White Team Fate, they know they need the room, they know they need to make themselves some space, and they actually, as you can see here, they go outside the circle to chase this one down. They spot one, And immediately, we need these guys. We cannot have anyone sit behind us. We need all 4 guys to focus on what's happening ahead of us. We cannot be forced to start looking for snakes behind us. They know the importance. They go out, they take the guys down, get the rest back up, boom, go back in the circle. It's a process that takes them probably 20 seconds. They make themselves so much room off of not having these players behind them. Had Lazarus been allowed to roam free on the backside while these guys are trying to fight forward, when it comes to these late circles, you know you need to make room for yourself. Whites and Fade, the former Optic guys, they know this for a fact. Very talented group of people. We need all the room that we can get. Push out, get down the guys. Boom, boom, boom. Fast, what do you say, engagement. Get back out of it. Get back inside the circle. Make room. Super smart play coming in from Whites and Fade. You see Maluki, Sharky, and company doing the same thing. Samba is going to make his way forward, try to get into a good position. And then you have Luke and Sharky trying to hold off anyone potentially pushing up from above plane crash. They have like the rich line up here they can sit and look over. Same thing for Sharky on the backside. Or for Sampa, I mean, on the backside. Wolf and something, they're kind of caught in a strange position. And then you have Penta and Check up on the little, there's a little dip up by plane crash they can kind of sit in. Shoot to kill, they made their way out of the compound. Again, new circle popped, they spot Clam, immediately push up on his valley, it sees him, goes for the kill, gets him, and as soon as that happens, spread out, make room for your team. And that's exactly what they do. Spread out, you saw the guys from Tempo Storm do the exact same thing. Now, Wolf has been hurt, immediately go over, get the help. Wolf gets knocked, Bahawaka, as soon as the engagement comes over. In the meantime, fight happens on the top side. Sampa somehow actually stays alive for a lot of this throughout. They were in a spot, I think Sampa was proning on a huge open hill and somehow managed to take down 2 people there. I was like, how did that just happen? But smokes and and some good shots allowed them to stay alive. Something all by himself. 1 versus 4 versus 3, probably just hoping that they would run into each other before they find him, so that he maybe could get himself a 2nd place or something like it. I believe he does go down. Yep, there you go. He goes down, and then a 1v1 fight to finish things off. Not a whole lot more. A 1v1, one team versus another fight here. Whites and Fate, they have the upper hand in utility. They have the upper hand in play count, and they pretty much just steamroll. So I believe they would end up winning the game with something like 12 or 13 kills. A really good game. I mean, Tempo Storm, they had something similar. And it's kind of interesting to see that these 2 teams were the teams that were on each their side. They were never center in the end circles. They just slowly and schematically closed their way on in, let all these teams that were already in that tried to maneuver around fight each other. And as that happened, make your way up, get a wipe. Make your way up, get a wipe. I don't think any of them actually had a full 4-team wipe. Like I don't think any of these 2 teams wiped a full 4-man team at all. They just engaged in the fights probably and did it exactly when they had to. So super smart game from them, and that was that was game number 1. Game number 1. That was the one that I watched as well, so that's always always interesting. Now we are going over to the games that I haven't seen. That's even more interesting, and that's of course on Miramar. First one of those. Have not seen this game. Plane, let's zoom out. Pretty southern. We know that the majority of teams like to be. Oh, no, it's kind of ironic because teams don't like to be up here, mainly because the planes often don't really. What do you say? They often don't really allow for you to get that far. But there are so many cities and stuff up here. You just, with the loot settings and all, you don't really need those big cities. But just looking at the map, you would think that you'd want to be up there, but nope, not quite the case. Let's see. Teams split out. Circle, dead center. Means, well, you can go wherever you want. Not a whole lot more to it, really. Extremely simple circles to play around. And you can see the majority of teams are actually already inside the circle. Wildcard, they'll go up to La Coparia. And then you have Noble looting on the southern side. Really not a whole lot more to it. Majority of teams already inside the circle. Now the issue becomes for all these teams, where do we go after? Because they have seen all the parachutes as they dropped in. And then, you know, kinda, sorta, where everyone is around them. And with so many teams already inside the first circle, for the team that rotates early, if you rotate 4 guys together and you pull up on a compound with 1 guy still looting, well, I mean, not only do you get yourself a kill, probably also get a good compound from it if that's the designated compound you wanted. So could be well worth the rotation there. Teams that going in, E United would make their way up towards, let's see, that would be Cloud9. And again, of course, we talk about this all the time. We want to go as center as possible. Nobody obviously wanting to be inside of Picado itself. But let's see as the circle comes closing on in. A lot of these compounds up here will be taken, shots will be fired, and this is actually kind of funny because you see Cloud9, they loot Picado and they would make their way back in, at least send Nerf back in. Some of these compounds, they're scary close to each other, and normally you would want to split. As you see Ghost, they split over here, Tempo Storm split the compounds here. But because so many of the teams were so close to each other from the very start of the game, it means that normally where you would maybe, instead of split these 2 compounds, then you would sit here and down here and then leave this one open. But if it was pushed, then you could still keep people off, just so you make some more room for yourself. You can't really do that here when there are so many teams around this area to begin with. So for a lot of these teams, they are forced to, well, early on in the game, cram more together because there's so many teams close already. Normally, teams would be more spread out, and for the teams that come in late, they will be like, oh, we're late anyway, so let's just stay out on the edge and wait for the new circle. Here, they're all in the middle, and then they all have the whole, oh, well, we're already in the middle, we can go even further center. And then we pretty much get all the teams, with the exception of, what, 2, 3, 4 teams crammed into the center very early on. You see Wildcard, they want to get their way somewhat further center. They actually go all the way up to Power Grid. Now with the new circle closing, the issue that this causes, let's look at this. This is the first circle, right? We'll draw a circle within the first circle. There you go. Look at the amount of teams sitting inside this circle. Now as a new circle pops, this is the thing you have to know. I mean, you have to know these sort of things as a at least as an in-game leader, the one sort of coordinating the rotations. If you're Noble and you see this circle pop, you got to keep in mind, where was the circle center before? That's the red line or red circle that we've drawn up. Where was the circle center before? And how can we move accordingly? So for Noble, if they want to go inside the new circle, which is the white one, they cannot just go through like this, because they will see immediately, well, if this is the previous circle center, that's where we would have the highest, concentration of teams. We need to maneuver around that. I mean, you don't want to fight, you don't want to drive through 14 teams in Miramar in circle 1. So I don't know, I didn't watch these games, but I would assume to see Noble either try to make their way in from the north, or try to drive all the way in from the south. One of those two, or third option, wait until now I see they're already in the vehicles, but wait until very late, and then just go in on the edge. Only issue here is you have this huge road. That is, yeah, it's not very forgiving. I mean, it's a huge downhill here, uphill over here. You just don't want to be forced to drive across this area. I mean, if you have to go over, don't want to be forced across that late game, or at any point in the game, really. If you want to have your vehicles intact. But let's see what they do decide to do. Looks like, yep, they're going all the way over. As we said, playing it smart, that's what you have to do, and that's the level of play you need, like you're expected to be able to deliver when you play competitively. New circle. Huh. I guess Picado is in again. Okay, so same thing as before. Figure out the center. Now, of course, with so many teams alive, we're reaching a point at which, well, sometimes you have a circle and there's simply just not room for everyone. That's just how it is. We have 62 people alive still. You can't see that. Actually, you know what we'll do? We'll just remove this logo real quick, because you cannot see that. Drink. There we go. You have 62 players alive still. And for all these people that are sitting inside the circle now, they can't really maneuver a lot. If they do, I mean, of course, for the guys in the sim, they will know that shoot to kill over here. They will probably also know the wildcards down here, because they've been shooting at the other teams trying to get around them. So they kind of just have to deal with, well, we're in the circle. That's good. We have an uncontested spot, and we're not currently in a fight for our spot. That's good as well. We're not getting pushed. That's good. Let's just chill around here and look what we got to work with. They have a hilltop position. They can sit and they can look around down towards Picado. They can look. I don't think they can see Tempo Storm unless if they go further down. But I mean, they'll have a pretty good idea with this spot what they can see from where they are. As opposed to Ghosts, they're sitting down in the compound. All they can see is up this direction. They can probably see a little bit. There's a big ridge line here, but they can see a little bit up here. But they will have no clue what's going on up here. So if the circle shifts up here, next circle, they can run up, but it's going to be very limited what info they can get from this sort of valley compound position. Cloud9, they're in a great spot. They can take all the houses. You see how they split it off. They have Lopes on the south side. He can scout out here. K-Mind alongside Nerf. They can sit and look all the way out to the west side. And then you have Profi up in the north. He can't really see up here, but these are two one-story houses. So he would be able to look over on the west side for quite a distance. So they can get, well, a good fair bit of info. And also Picado is such a big area of the map, and they will have heard that nobody's inside the city too. So everyone's going to make their rotations in. Whites and Fate in a rough spot up here alongside VG. It's going to be some hard rotations. They pretty much just have to send it in, hope that they can get themselves something to work with. And yep, looks like that's what they're going to do as well. Noble slowly making their way further in. VG is going to try to make their way all the way around. Smart rotation from them. Wow. Southern hard shift now. You cannot go through this with a vehicle. I mean, you can technically, but you will die before you get inside Picado. So if you're Cloud9 now, there are two things to it. One, do we want to stay this spread? The benefit of that is we get more info on where teams are. What do you say? What's the opposite of a benefit? The opposite of the benefit is that if they're that spread, if a team does decide to come into the city, they're further apart and can really assist each other as well. So, I mean, at this point in the game, since we cannot really play up here with more than one or two teams, this is a huge open hillside. Roads, of course, not a place you want to be. Teams will come inside Picado. I mean, teams will go into the city. That's simply no way around it. And they will, I would assume at least, have to go, if not 2-2, then 3-1, or all four guys together in like one of the segments of Picado. Like we can draw them up all like this. They have to pick one or two of these areas and say, we're just gonna stay here. We need to be together. There's gonna be a ton of people coming in now. Because if people can't go down here, that means that all the people on the north side that still have their vehicles, that is, we'll have to swoop in from one side, or swoop in from the other side, and just try to see if we can smash it inside the city and stay alive. And I would assume that that's going to happen. Noble, they made their way up to the dip. And crash in. That's one team crashing in. And you see immediately all of Cloud9, as soon as they crash into the city, they swarm them. They want to go over, they want to get the control. Not only because they want to finish the fight, of course, that's great, they can get some kill points and all that, but they have to be prepared for another team crashing in as well. They have to be prepared. They have to be able to reset, get the meds, get meted back up, get a new helmet if that's needed, get more utility, reset, prepare for the new fight. And I don't know if that does happen. Looks like some things manages to survive, but you see they're all together now. Looks like, yeah, it looks like one player did get eliminated. But for the rest of it, as we said, stick to one area of the city, and then work your way in from there. New circle pops even more Picado. It's not something you see very often. This is actually kind of interesting, and all these teams are starting to make their run down. Sim managed to take control of Arena. Shoot to kill tries to get down, not gonna happen. Ghost sitting on the on the small dips outside of the city. Envy crashes in. Two guys in gas station and two guys in the house, a one-story house down on the corner. Very rare to see circle end in Picado. That's actually interesting. Envy again deciding to go all together. Smart. Profi and company, they've taken control of casino. I mean, I guess the good thing about this area of the map, oops, that wasn't on purpose. The good thing about this area of the map is that everybody knows it. Because, well, I mean, everybody's been here so many times in solo games, right? We'll just do like this. There you go. Everybody's been here so many times in solo games. So, so that's something. What I wanted to do was like this. There you go. The good thing about it is that they all know it. The bad thing about it is they're not used to play it in a squad competitive game. Ghosts try to make their way in. Obviously, that's not going to happen. It's simply too late. I mean, if you wanted to crash the city, should have done it 1 or 2 circles ago. But they were never really... they never wanted to do that. So they get to pay for it. Something, somehow, just like last game, stays alive as a solo player. We'll see how far he gets this time around. One gets knocked, they get him back up. Something tries to cross over. Ooh, take some shots towards him. Final circle now. It's going to end just on the northern side of the city. Sharky comes inside. You see how they're split now in Cloud9, trying to hold off all the edges of the building. They know that people will have to either push inside their building or something similar. So, playing it really safe, playing it really smart. People end up dying all over. And who wins it? I guess that's... Wait, does something actually win that game? He does. He actually wins the game for being a solo player alive, just sneaking his way in. You have a 3-man team in Cloud9, 4 guys from Envy, 3 guys from Sim, and you have 2 guys from Tempo Storm. And he somehow got inside. Oh, he's on the roof? Oh, so he jumped up on the roofs here and then jumped over on the next roof. And then he's just on the roof, chilling, minding his own business and letting everyone else fight each other. That's actually amazing. When it works out, if you're solo, gotta do what you gotta do. That is extremely smart. Extremely smart play by him. There you go. Gets the winning game number 2. That was an interesting ending. I don't think I've ever had a competitive game that actually ended inside. I mean, it's been around Picado, but I don't think I've ever had a competitive game that ended inside of Picado. So that's interesting. I'll just eat a biscuit real quick. And take a sip of water. Now, game number 3 of yesterday. And of course, guys, the games will start again in, I believe, 3 hours for day 2. But, we're not done yet. Game number 3. Again, very centered teams. I do not know why, but I get these circles all the time. In competitive play, Southwestern circles, it's like half, if not more than half of the circles I see. They're down here somewhere. This is interesting because people know that there are teams, that there's a team in Picado, and they also know that Lazarius would be down in this area of the map. Meaning 2 things. 1, Cloud9 cannot safely rotate out from Picado before Lazarius has moved out. Because if they go too early, Lazarius could shoot them, and that will just mean that they die in the first rotation. That's not what we want to have happen. So Cloud9, unless if they want to move all the way around on either side, has to wait for Lazarius to move. And in order for anyone else to go this way, they have to wait for Cloud9 to move. Meaning, I do not think Cloud9, I do not think anyone would want to go through here. What I would expect to see is the majority, if not all the teams, will go into the circle. We can try and look at it. Here to... I want to say you can have some teams going through here, but here to here, like this entire path line right here, there's not going to be anyone going through unless if you're a team, for example, Noble, and you come in extremely late. If you come in like right as the circle closes, you might be able to go through Picado, but I would not expect anyone to go through here. I would expect a lot of teams to take the northern path in and a lot of teams to go around the south, either down there or in here. Let's see what ends up happening. Try and speed it up a little. Over, under. One team goes through. Yeah, so the teams will go through as the circle comes to a close, as we said, unless if it's very late. Teams can go through because they know, okay, at this point, if you're in Picado, odds are you've probably moved by now. But actually surprising to see this amount of teams going through this area. Noble would go all the way around as well. Surprising to see, what is it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 teams actually going through here. Considering, I mean, they could have run into each other a billion times. Fortunately, I guess you can say for them, does not end up happening. This area of the map is, yeah, not easy to play around at all. Huge ridge line, huge ridge line, huge ridge line. And you do not really want to drive in any of these valleys at all, really. You don't want to get stuck down there because you'll never get out. If the circle shifts away from you, you're pretty much screwed. Circle goes back north. That's good to see. Normally we see the from this circle we normally see something like this happen. So glad to see that that's not the case this time around. We're going back up north, meaning that some of these compounds are all of a sudden very much viable again. People would want to move in very center. As we can see, a lot of these teams are sitting in what we could call the circle 1 center, somewhere around in here. And then we will have all these compounds up just southwest of Picado, or pre-Picado, whatever we want to call it, becoming very much viable because they're isolated, meaning they're hard to push to, and you can also keep your vehicles safe, which are two very key factors in Miramar when you have an end game that could potentially be out in the open. So all these teams try to make their way, and you see all these compounds all of a sudden being very, very interesting for all these teams. Chumacera obviously having been left, people don't want to be inside the cities. Nobody's inside Montenuevo really either, other than Sim sitting on the southeastern side. Now Circle goes back down south, and teams knowing that, well, Chumacera is a no-go, well, they'll probably go there, because if you know that the general thought is that you don't want to be in the city, then odds are always that if you do go there anyway, then, I mean, odds are that there aren't anyone else, and if there's anyone, there's probably only one team. So if your alternative is to play in the open in a spot that's horrible, then you might as well go inside a city instead. But again, it's very last resort kind of thing, because they could pull up to one building, there could be a full team inside the next, and then you couldn't really do anything. You have to focus so much on what's next door that you can't really scout out further or look out. You cannot see a whole lot of what's going on down here, for example, if you're sitting right up here. With this little wall sort of blocking off the vision. Anyway, E United, they do go down there. Oxy would come in, but then again, they would get scared off and drive back down towards the compound. You can see right there on the feed. And for all these teams that are sitting on the edges now, you have SA far up north. They're sitting up here. Then you have VG up here. Smurf and company in the middle. Envy is sitting pretty well in it as well. New Circle Pups. Wow, hard shift. Okay, interesting. If you're VG now, I hope you've scouted that this compound is clear, because that would be the first move you'd want to make. If you're Ghost now, I hope you've scouted that this compound is clear, because that would want to be the move that you would want to make. Ghost, obviously, seeing that this is open. VG, they're staying rather than pushing out. And now we get to that point in the game where teams kind of just have to crash things. We see a lot of teams dying already, down to 44 players, and it will only get worse should we include more of this kind of road area. This is a huge uphill towards, well, this direction. And that means Ghost, VG, all these teams that are sitting on the east side of the road, they can just sit and fire away on anything coming down from up here. So should the road be in play coming into the next circle and go east, it's gonna be very, very, it's gonna be like a land downhill D-Day push, and that's not gonna be easy at all, because all the majority of the ridge lines, they go sort of is it perpendicular? Is that what it's called? Like they go not parallel, but the opposite, you know, from the road. So it's not like you have a ridge line, like a gutter line, that's going to help you a lot here. It's mainly ridge lines that go like this. So if you're sitting down here, you'll be able to look up in the ridges. There are some ridge lines going the other way, some dips here and there, but for the most part, it's hard to spot this way, but it's easy to spot this way, if that makes any sense. We'll see though. How does the next circle move? And boom. Okay, so pretty much cut in half with the road. Ghosts, they have to make a move up. There are some small dips on the intersections on each side, and then you of course you have the compound up here. I mean, somebody must have scouted this compound or seen it and be like, there's been no movement in here in the last 2.5 circles. Of course, there could be a snake sitting in there waiting, but I mean, thank you, VG. I was gonna say you have to. I mean, you have to make that push at some point, right? Tempo try to make a forced push into the compound. Not gonna happen. Oh, actually, 2 managed to stay alive. Noble sitting up here trying to make their way in. Road again going to be a factor. These circles are very brutal, not gonna lie. And at this point, I mean, the thing is, Tempo Storm probably left their vehicles when they left down on the southern side. So they're out in the blue. Nobody, I think, have any vehicles remaining other than maybe SSG, because they've been in this compound for a while. And also VG, they had this compound. You saw them drive from the other compound over here. They might have vehicles as well. Anyone else forced to play out in the open? They've probably used a lot of utility to get to this point in the game, meaning that if they had smokes, if they had any smokes, if they had any cover, very little of it is left now. There you go. They do manage to find a vehicle. Tempo Storm and go dead center on the shack. 3 guys in the shack. That's always always interesting and somewhat scary. But this is the point of the game where you gotta make cover with everything that you have available, right? So you see Sharky and Maluk, only guys remaining on their team. They'll go down. Envy, they will take their vehicles and try and drive up, or the vehicles from SSG, I'm actually not sure. Drive over on the other side. They use that little dip that we talked about for cover. SSG, nice spot from them. They have the hills up here. There's a bit of a ridge line going up, so they have a little bit of cover, and Aloe is stuck down behind the shack. Adam has a bit of a ridge line down there you can play with. New circle goes dead center ish, and SSG would win it. I mean, 4v2, they get down Aloe, they forced him down or pinned him down behind the shack. Not a lot he can do. And then 1v4 from Adam, gets a flush into one guy, but he would go down. In the end. Interesting circle. So from one Picado game, we kind of go back to the same area, just a little further south. And then with the rotations coming in, I mean, so many teams are forced to play on the edge because these isolated compounds, that's the thing we talked about, right? These isolated compounds, they're just, if you don't get them early on, you don't want to push them. It's the kind of thing where you go, well, I mean, there's got to be, I mean, when you see this circle, from a competitive standpoint, if you didn't see any of the player names, you'd be like, okay, there's got to be a team in here, right? 41 alive in this circle, there's got to be a team in here. So nobody really pushes it. So all these teams are forced to fight on the edge. Bottleneck only gets smaller and smaller as we go down to the area here. And it just becomes horrible. So for the teams that are forced to push down, not only are they fighting the team inside the compound, but all the teams on the other side as well. It's just extremely tough. And that's why we'll see the teams that had compounds be the teams that would stay put to the very end of the game. So overall, interesting game number 3. But those kind of games always really favor the compound, or the teams that are able to stay in the compounds, I guess, which is, I guess you can say, lucky when you're in a compound, but at the same time, it's a good spot to be in. And I mean, you need to get some luck sometimes in order to win these sort of games. Game number 4. And again, guys, if you have any questions regarding any of this, please fire away. That's why we're sitting here discussing what's going on. Let's see. Game number 4. Somewhat eastern plane, but still, you can get western plane, I mean, sorry. But you can get east if you want to. Northern circle, again, okay, so pretty much the exact same circle as last game. Or last Erangel game, that is. Things to notice. Ghost, they jumped out early. Normally they would go down to Milta. They saw the plane and they were like, nope, that's not gonna happen. So they go up here. Lasarius, they're up here. They would normally go down to Multipower, I believe. So a lot of teams around these areas that, well, where you wouldn't normally see them. United, they want to go East Coast. Noble is out there as well. They're kind of doing a two-team split on the Knights split out there. And then all these teams, again, last game we talked about it as well. It was a little further south last game, the circle. But last game we talked about how many of the teams opted to go north of the river early on. And then it would bounce back and forth, back and forth. You guys probably saw the analysis or the game. But a lot of teams, look at how many teams are already forcing fights here. Cloud9, they almost ran into a fight here last game. And this is actually the exact same spot that Oxy was in last game. You had the YTM Fate sitting in cube. Then you had Cloud9 push over and sit on the dip here. And then Oxy, they were in a spot where they could push down to Cloud9, but they never did. Cloud9, they were fortunate to get over to the hilltop and the compound over here just before that happened. But this time around, actually, the fight does happen. So pretty much a complete repeat of last game, other than the fact that YTM Fate isn't there. So Cloud9 loses 2 players. I believe that's... it's K-Mind and Nerf going down early on. Unfortunate for them. And you can see immediately Oxy gets third-partied by shoot to kill. So these 4 teams, they were in the exact same spot last game, and this time around, last Miramar or Irangle game, they managed to avoid the fight. This time around, not quite so. New circle pops, and this time we go west. So if all these teams that get in now, boom. It's not guaranteed north. It could still shift south. Obviously, odds are against it, but it could happen. But this area of the map is always interesting to drive through because you have a huge uphill on the backside of shooting range. You have the valley going in here that ends around here, I would say, the dip down here. Then you have the northern path that you can take, but there's going to be teams around the roads that will shoot you. And then you can try and drive up and over here. But it's so curved, the terrain. So many trees, so many ridges and bushes that people can hide behind, and it's just very dangerous to bring your vehicles along. And the thing here becomes, if you're forced to leave your vehicles here, or maybe outside this circle even, and then run in, and the next circle goes even further west into the open, this is where we end up having those situations where, well, I mean, you could just make a car for it in the open. No, because you left your vehicles back here, you know, so not really an option. But as we can see right now, everybody in vehicles, of course, the circle just pops. I would think a majority of the teams would try and make their way around the northern side, but we'll see. Yeah, look at this, everybody going up here. Nobody wants to try and drive through up by plane crashing these things. Shoot to kill an Oxy, they're fighting. People will hear those shots, they'll be like, nope, 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 not gonna go through there. So everybody trying to go in from the north. Issue here being, some of the teams will try to kind of drop off alongside the road. But if one team drop off here, then the next team is forced to go further, and in the end, teams would be crashing into each other because we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, potentially 8 teams trying to make that northern rotation right now. And there's just not enough room for all of them on the north side. They're all trying to go up on the same hill. SA do manage to get the compound. YTM Fate, they get out early on. Trying to hold off Envy, VG as well in there, and then the circle goes back south, and this is where those bottleneck situations happen. You have so many so many teams trying to cram their way. You can see it right here. Look at the push, whoops, the push up here in the north. You have so many teams trying to cram their way into the same small area of the map. And then if the next circle doesn't benefit all those people and they have to move again, doing that same sort of rotation becomes harder because, well, first of all, you have less room to work with. And in this case, all of the terrain that you can rotate in is hills where you don't want to bring your vehicle. So as we see the circle close in, all these teams that are now called out on the top side of, on the top side of the circle, majority of them are excluded, like not inside the next circle. You do have Lasarius, SA, and Ant down here fighting. I mean, they have a compound each, and then Lasarius on the hilltop. But all these teams that are up here, they will now have to, well, pretty much get inside the circle in this terrain. Downhill here, actually a somewhat open hill, downhill here and here. I guess it's more open over here, but still. they have to make their way in. And should this next circle go even further south, then that bottleneck gets smaller, smaller, smaller until they all pretty much until they all die. Wilding, hello to you. Good evening. So all these teams will try to make their way in. Envy, they're forced to make an even further rotation. Again, do the same thing as before. You try to push up. Okay, you got hard shifted away from again. Try to push up again, do the exact same thing. You know that the circle is going to go north of the water now with the circle settings the way that they are. But it can, there's a few variations as to where it could go. I mean, it's by a couple of 100 meters. The team's trying to make their way in. Now the circle does go north. They all know this. Majority of teams are now, fortunately, either inside or close to being inside the circle. So E United, they'll be up here. They should be able to rotate in. There's a bit of a forest line up and around here where I don't think Shoot to Kill can see them if they make them move up and over. But on the northern side of things, I mean, you have Ghost, they're sitting on the ridge. You have White Temp Fade, they have to make their way in as well. There's only room for one of these two teams to make their way in, because if Ghost tries to push around the bottom, End will spot them. If they try to move around the top, there's like a triangular plateau up here where from Lazarus' spot, they can keep control of all of this. And believe me, if one of these teams starts shooting, whichever of these two teams aren't there, they'll go over and try to third party if they see any knocks coming in. Because they, at this point, obviously know who they're right next to. So, Lazarus will be able to hold off this. And I think the best thing, unless if White Temp Fate can take out Ghost and then move inside to sort of reset and take a new fight with Lazarus, best thing they could do is actually push underneath. I don't think Lazarus can see all the way down because of the plateau. And this compound down here is kind of in a dip where you have a little bit of a ridge line up here. So they could go down and play the dips down here, White Temp Fade, and then make their way in. Only thing being, they have to get down there before VG does, because, well, if they don't, then they're kind of screwed. So let's see what happens here. They do force each other into a fight, none of them really benefiting from it. VG have made their way in now. We talked about this, they need to get in before them. E United, having heard VG shoot, they want to go up in third party, so they take up the fight. Completely overwhelming. Oh, I say that, but actually not happening. Protug, oh, he does go down at the end, so smart play from them trying to push in. Baha would make his way down there eventually, but only one player remaining. Had they pushed out, disengaged from Ghost, made that move down, had one player been able to scout that, they could have gotten down there, maybe not with all four alive, because Valiant went down really early on, but instead of forcing the fight here, I know that they're an aggressive team that wants to get the kills and stuff, and it's a kill-heavy point system, but had they been down here instead, they could have held off VG, and then with the new circle popping, had there been 4 guys alive down here, maybe 3, they could have sat down here, held off VG, and then as they get third party, they could have held off E United as well. Ghost would be forced to make the move over on the other side. They would be forced to fight Lazarus, and then they could have jumped up a third party this. So, as we said, even though it's a kill every point system, sometimes you wanna, you wanna be an aggressive team, but you wanna activate the aggressiveness at the right time. You don't just wanna go, oh my god, everywhere, go shoot, go kill, go shoot, go kill, because odds are you will die somewhat early on, or be 2 or 3 players alive and then get kind of screwed over by it. So, Hetra tries to do something, unfortunately it doesn't work. They heard the shots fired up here. Lazarus forcing the fight with End as they leave the compound. New circle pops up here. Looks like E United opting to go with vehicles. That's optimistic. And that ends up getting them all killed as well. I like the push out from SA. Actually going up here to take control. They heard the fight. They heard the third party opportunity. Utilizing that. Teams are still sitting and chilling inside of... Yesnaya inside of George Bull for a little while longer, and then you have the dip or the rich line up here that Tempo Storm is sitting on. Actually a really smart spot that they're on right now. They have so much vision out on either, like on each side. Vision here, vision here, vision down here. As long as they can just keep people at bay, because nobody has vehicles at this point, well, other than E United that died. As long as they can keep people away, as well, we can put it this way, the longer they can keep them away, the more they will force them to fight each other. Because if this ridge line right here keeps being in, and the circle gets smaller and smaller, that edge, we talked about the bottleneck, will get smaller and smaller as well. So if teams are forced to fight, if teams are forced to fight each other out there as they make their way in, all Tempo Storm really have to do is just sit in third party, because what would you want to focus on? If you're a team that's sitting here, and you have to go up here, right? If you're a team that's sitting here, and these guys are tapping away at you, but there's another team here as well, do you try and shoot these guys? Or do you shoot the guys that are right next to you? Your main concern probably has to be the guys that are next to you, right? Leaving it completely open for the Tempo Storm guys to shoot. So as long as they can keep everyone from being able to crash their ridge line here, then they should be in a very, very good spot. Teams in the north forced to fight each other. Now they go down and clear the shack. They know that could be a threat later on. They still have the ridge to play with. Holding the top side. All they have to worry about right now is to make sure their back is clear. They can still play from the northern side of the ridge for a little while longer. Secure yourself. The north, hold off SA as they come pushing down. It's going to be your main concern. That's what they do. But oh my god, that's a lot of casualties going their way. Wildcard, they'll come in and try and third party on it. And do they win it? They do. Extreme and Pride managing to stay put. And then, of course, in the end, look at the circle. I mean, Wildcard, only 2 players alive, but they have the entire circle for themselves. They could push all the way, I believe, up here without the compound being able to see them. They could probably sit here without these guys down here being able to sit them because the uphill ridge. So they have all the room in the world to work with. They heard all the shots, and now Cloud9 and Wildcard 2v2, kind of a chaotic end game, and boom, there you go. In the end, Wildcard would win it. So from having been inside of Georgia Ball, if we try to follow Wildcard for a second, having been inside of Georgia Ball, they swoop around up on the side, like they clear their entire side, their entire ridge line. It's kind of the same thing that Tempo Storm is doing. They're just doing on the opposite hillside, clearing that entire side. From one clear, sweep further. From one clear, sweep further. Just pretty much just run around the ridge all the way around the north side. They knew that if they were trying to, that's the thing, teams don't want to fight inside cities. It's so RNG, it's so random, it's so stupid. Then instead of trying to run down here, which would be the obvious choice as they're close, they go here, bounce further, bounce further. Every time the new circle pops, they try to move accordingly. So they leave here, go up into Sim, wipe them. They know where their strengths are. Fight, we're still 4 guys alive. Use that to our advantage. Take the fights if we have to. Push on further. They heard their fight happening with SA. They want to engage that, but they don't. You see them sitting here. They're just waiting. They're waiting, they're waiting, they're waiting. Now the fight happens down here. Now the Tempo Storm SA fight happens. And immediately, you see Wildcard push over. Get the finish up onto one guy. Boom, there they go. Over they go. They saw the knocks come in. They go down, they take the next fight. Now there are only 2 guys alive, but they got out of that chaos moment that they would have been in had they stayed down here. Because the only reason these 3 teams can all stay in this area, well, that's because there are only 3 teams. Look at this. 1 building, 2 building, 3 building. Wildcard could have sat with 4 players in here, but having to cross the road, they would have gone out in, well, yeah, probably 4th or 5th place. Instead, they sweep the entire top side, probably even worse than that. We see there's still 10, by the time they leave Georgia Bowl, there's still 10 teams alive. Now we're down to 7. So it would have been way worse. They clear the top, they make their way in, end up winning the game. Pretty smart playing coming in from Wildcard, to be honest. Yeah, that was all of yesterday's games. Of course, tonight they're playing again in just about 2.5 hours. So if you want to stick around for that, not stick around because I'm not obviously going to be streaming them, but do make sure to go watch. Do make sure to go watch the matches. They're great fun. Support your PUBG community. But with that, that was all for that. Sorry, Sarah, hello, and yeah, thank you for watching along. Until next time.